Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas and you're watching Empire Building. So, I'm just going to get right into this. Obviously, I was wrong. I thought that Bitcoin had exhausted most of its downside potential immediately following Elon Musk's controversial tweet just 1 week ago today. Obviously, especially for those invested in these cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining stocks, the pressure has felt relentless. So maybe it's time we reevaluate where we are. A lot has happened, so let's just take a moment and recalibrate. We're going to take another look at these charts, see what they tell us now, and sort of address all of these issues that have been raised in the last few weeks. So as it stands right now, looking back at the old bottom that I was pretty sure was going to hold, that fell apart earlier this week, and it just kept getting worse. And then last night, news came out that China would be banning financial payment. Banning financial payment institutions from cryptocurrency businesses. Basically, any financial institution in China cannot service any clients through the use of cryptocurrencies in any way. This is like the 678th time China has banned cryptocurrencies. They've never gone so far as to say that citizens cannot hold cryptocurrencies as they've done in Nigeria. And in India, they seem to be walking back from that position. Now, when it comes to making market predictions, you'll notice that anyone you might watch or listen to, they have a whole lot of things that they like to point to. People draw lines all over the place. I'm guilty of this myself. It's not to say that these market indicators don't mean anything at all. It's just none of them are guaranteed, especially when dealing with external forces. The interesting thing about these events is none of them really seem all that significant, yet they've had one of the most significant effects on Bitcoin's price in a very long time. Let's have a look at a few of those aspects. Having a look at Bitcoin's daily chart, we can see, for starters, we are extremely oversold at this point. And this is here after currently an $8,000 increase in the price from the bottom we just formed. That would have put us near record lows on the daily chart. We also can see this level here. This is the 200 daily moving average that a lot of people were expecting to hold as support. And we blew right through it. We eventually bottomed out at about $30,000, which just so happens to be the approximate average price that Tesla purchased their $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin for. Not to mention also Marathon Digital. Their Bitcoin purchase was somewhere around the $31,000 mark. One of the interesting things that I had identified was that on the weekly chart, actually, and I think, I've got this on a logarithmic time scale, so we can actually look further back in time. If we are still in a bull market, what has just happened has only occurred one other time in all of Bitcoin's cycles throughout its entire history. The weekly RSI indicator, as it stands right now, I'm not even including the drop that we previously had when we fell all the way down to $30,000. That's not shown here. We're showing exactly where we are standing currently at approximately $38,000. The RSI indicator sits at about 46.7, and throughout all of the 2017 bull run, we had never come down this low on the weekly RSI indicator. In the previous bull cycle, back in 2013, we reached as low as 47.8. This was kind of a unique cycle, And some are saying that it's more indicative of the cycle we're in right now. However, again, looking to the past for these patterns and superimposing them on the future or the current market situation, it's very difficult to do. Now, when we have a look at the halvings, as far as days from the halving, that first peak that was made back in 2017 happened 18 weeks following the halving. Currently, we are 52 weeks post-halving. Carrying that out puts us right about to where we topped out the first time. So I guess the question is this the market? Does this signal the top of the market? After the second halving, it took 74 weeks to reach the top. So there's really no clear indication here. And it really is anyone's best guess. It's also pretty clear that in previous markets, we've never seen the kind of top we've just formed here. But the main point I'm getting at here is no matter what your belief is or what your investment strategy is, as it stands right now, we are in extremely oversold territory, the likes of which we've actually very rarely ever seen. But really, the question as an investor, in my mind, is to be able to ask yourself, what is a system like Bitcoin worth to the world market? There are a lot of narratives that you could hang your hat on, whether it's a store of value. Some would argue these events of the past few months are indicative it is not a store of value, at least not yet. The thing is, you can't expect something that is following a rapid adoption curve to also behave as it might when it's fully matured. It's just not practical. What we're dealing with here is not its final form. We're trying to see if it can reach that final form. So I'm not invested in Bitcoin technologies and cryptocurrencies because they are a short-term store of value. In the long term, I think that narrative still holds. But it's pretty clear to say that we are still in the early stages of this technology. People are still trying to wrap their heads around what it is, how it works, and what it's worth. And I find it interesting that it is in fact Bitcoin mining that has become beginning to take center stage. It's becoming large enough that people are beginning to ask these actually very important questions. How much energy should Bitcoin consume as a worldwide market? And what people need to understand is that the energy consumed by Bitcoin mining has absolutely nothing to do with how many transactions that Bitcoin can perform and how efficiently it carries out those transactions. It's got nothing to do with that. You can have any other cryptocurrency come out and do the exact same thing Bitcoin does, cheaper, faster, more efficiently. It doesn't make any difference because that network cannot support the monetary value that Bitcoin currently has. If it did, it would be attacked very quickly. The only reason why Bitcoin has earned its position is that it has had the time to fully adapt to the world that it exists in, making it extremely resilient to these forms of attack. If you were to suddenly throw $1 trillion onto the Dogecoin network, that system would crumble. During these times when we experience this kind of fear and doubt, I always tend to go back, re-engage my faculties to further advance my understanding of this technology. And as many of you know, in doing that, I often turn back to Andreas Antonopoulos, especially a lot of his older talks. There's so much of this content available on YouTube. So I'm going to link this one again down in the description, but I'm just going to share with you one part that really highlights the importance of this aspect of Bitcoin's protocol.
There are consensus mechanisms that instead of proof of work are based on proof of stake or delegated proof of stake. And we're seeing all kinds of new consensus algorithms being dreamt up. How many of those can scale to a global level of security that is resistant to global attacks? So far, one, Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean another one can't scale. What's difficult, however, is that if you try to scale a consensus algorithm today, you have to reach scale before you are attacked at scale. You have to build an industrial infrastructure of hashing or mining or a user adoption base or an economic base that is big enough to resist attack before you are attacked. Bitcoin did this by everybody ignoring it for a couple of years because they didn't think it was important. And by the time everybody noticed and thought, okay, maybe this is important and worth attacking, it was already strong enough that it couldn't be attacked. And then the strength of the network has outpaced the adoption and demand and attacks to make it extremely resilient to attack. The problem is you can't do that again, because if you actually have a really innovative consensus algorithm and people think that's going to be valuable, and they think it's going to be valuable enough to join the consensus algorithm and mine for it, they're also going to think it's valuable enough to attack. And there's no flying under the radar anymore.
This video was uploaded at the beginning of 2016, so I'm not entirely clear on when it was recorded, but a lot has certainly happened since then, and Bitcoin has grown leaps and bounds since this video was made. But this point that he makes, that it's going to be very difficult for another cryptocurrency to surpass Bitcoin. And the reality is, any other cryptocurrency that claims to be the Bitcoin killer, they have a serious problem, is that they have to scale in a slow and progressive manner so as to make sure that that algorithm doesn't become susceptible to attacks. You see, you have to understand how these systems work. All of them are susceptible to attack. Once you understand how these attacks can be orchestrated, you start to understand how powerful Bitcoin truly is. So the energy that Bitcoin consumes is not wasted, and it isn't used to process transactions. Bitcoin can process the exact same, or essentially the same number of transactions today as it did when it was first created. There are some technical aspects to that have changed. You may have heard it said that the maximum size of a Bitcoin block is 1 megabyte, which was true, but things have changed. Back in 2017, Bitcoin's block size, the limit was replaced by a block weight limit of 4 million weight units. This, in effect, changed the theoretical maximum size of a Bitcoin block to 4 megabytes, but a more realistic maximum size of 2 megabytes. And this is because of the adjustments that were made into how information is stored on a block. I won't get into all of the technical aspects of this, but essentially what it means is that depending on the types of transactions that are included in the block will actually depend on how much space that block takes up. Currently, when we look at the growth of the Bitcoin network in terms of the size of each block, it is rising, and we are certainly over 1 megabyte per block as an average, currently reaching an all-time high of about 1.37 megabytes. Now, by comparison, we know that the block sizes for Dogecoin are actually the same size, the maximum size for Dogecoin is the same size as Bitcoin. And Elon Musk has talked about raising those block sizes, including the frequency and so on and so on and so on. All this has been done before. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at Dogecoin as it stands today, it's using a fraction of what Bitcoin is. It's on average sits at around about 160 kilobytes per block. That's utilizing only a tenth of the current blocks that it currently has on average. And this is the important thing that people must realize. You can clone Bitcoin's code. You can even improve upon it, but you cannot clone Bitcoin. And it would take an enormous shift to convince the entire world and all of these companies that have built up on this infrastructure on top of Bitcoin to suddenly shift over to some other new coin, no matter how good Elon Musk claims it is, unless he's willing to put all of his money behind building up that infrastructure before the people even decide to show up. It would be susceptible to attack because there's no growing in the shadows anymore. And the reality is, Bitcoin does exactly what it needs to do. And as far as its energy consumption is concerned, it's necessary. It's the only way you secure a network worth over $1 trillion. And its power consumption will continue to grow. This should not have been a big mystery to someone like Elon Musk. This frustrates me when people say, well, he didn't know Bitcoin's power consumption was suddenly going to go up. Tesla's Bitcoin purchase occurred just before 2020 or somewhere in that range. So if Elon Musk is looking at Bitcoin's hash rate consumption or its power consumption, and he had concerns about that, what would someone as intelligent as Elon Musk deduce? What would they infer from looking at a chart like this? Assuming Bitcoin's price would continue to rise, what do you think is going to happen to this chart? It's obvious, and we've seen it take place, and it's going to continue to do this. And any cryptocurrency that is lucky enough to find itself successful will have a similar effect. Now, how long it's able to withstand that is another story altogether. Dogecoin's current hash rate is currently sitting at about 320 terahash. For those keeping track, that's roughly a quarter of Marathon's total deployed hash rate as we speak. That's just one mining company. To put that into perspective, Bitcoin hasn't been at that level since 2015. Mid-2015 would have been the last time Bitcoin found itself at that level of hash rate. Now, again, that is no indication of the efficiency of the transactions on that particular network. It has only to do with the security of that network. Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies must obey the second law of thermodynamics, which basically states you can't get something for nothing. So I hope you all didn't mind geeking out there for a little bit, but there are these important issues and topics we have to get our minds wrapped around. We have to understand why these systems behave the way that they do. It's not enough to just simply say we think it should be something else without fully understanding the implications of those factors. And the fact of the matter is, Elon Musk, as brilliant as he is very new to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I know he's brilliant. I know has a reputation of thinking outside of the box. But we are talking about somebody who just in December didn't know that you can transact with $1 billion on the Bitcoin network. Nobody can be an expert in everything. It takes time. I have no doubt that he will put the time in, but until then, unfortunately, he is going to lead some people astray. But at least we now know that their intent, Tesla's intent, is to stay within this for the long haul, at least for the time being. At this point, who knows? The bottom line is, Elon Musk or no Elon Musk, this network will continue to grow. And the mining power behind Bitcoin is what is going to make all the difference, which is why I will continue to stand behind it. That's all for this one. Now let's get back to empire building.